Welcome to Influential Visions. Here, we interview futuristic leaders who share their deep industry knowledge and business experience with you, ensuring you have your finger on the pulse and your eyes wide open. My name is Nathaniel Schooler, and I am your host today. Well, hey, Mike, it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Nat. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know who Mike is, Michael Tobin, OBE, he's a tech entrepreneur and philanthropist, right?
Yeah, that's apparently what they describe me as. But I think they use another few choice words occasionally, but I probably can't repeat those here.
Well, I think with the title of your book, Forget Strategy, Get Results, right? I don't think they like that one too much.
Well, not when you're a public company CEO, they probably don't, but they'll soon learn to do so. But all my theories have been borne out to be successful so far. There we go. It's usually because I'm surrounded by great people, as you are now.
Exactly. Thanks, Mike, for jumping on. It's super to see you again. And yeah, so today we're gonna kind of talk on a high level around data protection and privacy. We're not going to go into like loads of techie stuff because I'm not a techie. I don't program or anything. But you know, I know you've got a bit of an alternative view about this, and I'm kind of edging in the direction of where you are, especially with this current situation that we find ourselves in. Because I know, you know, Google and Apple did this thing, and they've offered the API over to companies and governments so they can produce these apps, and then people can actually share their data of where they are in relation to other people that are potentially infected with COVID-19, right? So do you think people should be worried about their online privacy?
Well, so I mean, you know, specifically looking at that scenario, because it's extremely sensitive to all of us at the moment. Everyone is impacted by COVID, and you know, we're all fearful of contracting it or transmitting it or putting people in harm's way. And you know, there's a clear and obvious value to sharing that capacity to track people. And even if it's kind of at the moment, you know, your own ability to track yourself, and saying, I'm putting this into the context of knowing who I'm going to be nearby. And if any of those people have had or have shown symptoms of COVID, then I shouldn't be anywhere near them. You know, that's a good, you know, there's a value in that. And everyone can see it just like instantly. You don't have to sit there and have a debate about, you know, whether that's a positive thing or not. It's very clear. Now, and yet when it comes down to sharing that same data for example, proactive targeted marketing, then suddenly people don't like it. Right? Then it's an abuse of my personal privacy and things like that. Well, you know, there is a school of thought that says that you know, you should be allowed to turn it on and off. But, you know, how much junk mail do we get through our letterboxes? How much junk mail do we get in our email boxes? How many times do you walk down Oxford Street and people jump out of perfumeries going, hey, can I talk to you? Can I ask you a question? It's like, go get it. It happens, right? It's like, really annoys me, especially when you're on the phone. You're walking down the phone, they can clearly see you're engaging in a conversation. And someone jumps out and goes, can I ask you a question? It's like, you know, and I think, you know, it's clearly an abuse of your privacy in those scenarios as well. So the online data world is simply an extension of the real world. Okay. And we have these situations in the real world as we do in the online world. And you know, we can't easily legislate for the individual. We can't turn on and off the ability of that guy to jump out of his shop and try to sell me a smelly stick or whatever he's trying to do at that point. But we do have the ability to control it online to a certain extent, right? Because we can choose what data we allow people to share, or what we allow people to use through cookies, through various things. And it's, you know, since GDPR in Europe, you know, everyone will be very used to every time you log in, almost every time you log into a website now, you know, you see do you accept the cookies? And, you know, we're at the point now where no one cares? I mean, oh God, you know, what's the option of accepting the cookie? You can't progress on the website unless you accept it. And, you know, so they're kind of forcing you into, you know, their compliance of GDPR. So I think the first thing to think about is, you know, data protection is not an online only thing. Data privacy or your privacy is not an online only thing. It happens in the real world. And we just think about it differently because it's a physical thing that we can probably contextualize better. So the second thing is it good or bad? Right? And I personally think, you know, it's if I get bombarded with things anyway, i.e. the guy jumping out in front of me in the street when I'm on the phone, i.e. the junk mail that comes through my letterbox, the rubbish that comes into my inbox, shouldn't we be able to curate it in a better way, right? Now, you know, if I give you an example. So if I go onto a free website and I have to put, the only thing I need to do rather than pay for the content of this website is simply put in my details, i.e. register. But I'm thinking, oh, I don't want this company to know my details. So I'm going to put in there a fake birthday, right? And I put in, you know, today's date. You know, is it any surprise then that I start to get emails with Mickey Mouse on them and things like that because people are sending me stuff that's appropriate to a 1-year-old, right? As opposed to appropriate to me. And I say, why am I getting this rubbish? Well, because you put in rubbish data. But if you're putting in appropriate data and you start to then allow people to think about you properly, and this is where I'll come to in a second, then surely, you know, the mail that you get in the door, the mail you get in your email, and the type of person that jumps out in the street at you will be more curated to what you are more likely to want, as opposed to rubbish that you're never going to want. Okay, so then, you know, then you should start to see it as the same value as the data that you definitely do want is to know when you're going to be standing next to someone with COVID and run away. Right? So there's a bunch of other stuff now that starts to add real value to our lives. And if we can get into that mindset when it comes to data, you know, we'll be in a much more comfortable place to say, well, I get this. I actually think that, you know, the more data and the more accurate data, more appropriate data I give about me, the more value I'm going to receive from the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. It's a real minefield though. Like a lot of people are really paranoid about their privacy. They're paranoid about their future, and they think that it's kind of really risky and really dangerous to give away all their data. But I read a post this morning on LinkedIn which made me smile, with a security expert, and she said there's so much data out there on us now anyway because everything's been breached.
Totally. And we worry about online transactions and things like that. But, you know, back in the day, we used to sign checks. And, you know, how easy was it just to forge a signature? And how would even anyone know if they only ever received one check from you? How would they even know if it was a good signature or a bad signature?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was so easy. You just stole a checkbook and Bob's your uncle. Right? You've got that Leonardo DiCaprio film. It was it Catch Me If You Can?
Oh, yeah.
Was it John Abagnale or whatever his name was? It's a true story about this guy that just started, you know, he bought, he printed out checkbooks, right? And then decided that airline pilots were just considered heroes, right? So they could walk into, for example, into a hotel and say, could you cash this check for me? Right. And, you know, because checks would take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to actually get to a bank and get verified or anything else, then he would write the name and type the name up on a typewriter and everything. And then to get the TWA logo on the end of the check, because it was basically the check of his salary coming in, and they would just ask the hotel to cash it. And he would buy these Airfix planes and the transfers on the Airfix planes, right? He would use them and put a transfer on the corner of the check, and it would look like a real TWA check. and then the hotel would take them and cash them instantly, give them $100, $200, whatever. Wow. And then you know, 2 weeks later, when the bank got it and said, I'm not going to, you know, to honor this check, he was gone. right? And back in the day, that was how behind we were in terms of verifications and validations of people's identities, you know, and that sort of thing. And yet, you know, we used checks for decades. And now we've got this super high tech verification of sort of, you know, when you type, you know, you put your credit card online and you get the kind of thing that's whizzing around and it's saying doing a verification check, and it sends you a message and you have to type that in. And that's incredibly secure and it's real time. And yet we're still so worried about it because it goes on in what people call the cloud out there that we don't understand where it is. But we feel comfortable with this piece of paper that everyone can copy.
So what's the worst that can happen then with data being available on everyone? Like what's the, I mean, it's already happened, right? Like yeah, Trump got into power and, you know, I'm not political in my opinions. Yeah. But like, you know, Trump got into power, we had Brexit, right? These things happen because of data. Yeah. And that, as far as I'm concerned,
I don't know whether it's because of data, but it's certainly because of social media. I mean, I voted for Brexit, but not for any of the reasons that were you know, brandished around for the reasons to vote Brexit. But social media did a great job, and media in general did a great job. You know, you put fear into people that we have a problem with immigration, for example.
Yeah.
And then everyone says, "Oh, what's the way to fix that?" And then fear. Whereas, you know, we don't have a problem with immigration, even pre-Brexit, because you know, every time I come back to Heathrow, I still have to show my passport.
Yeah.
So we may have a problem with forged passports, but we don't have a problem with immigration per se, right? We have control over it. So there's no reason for Brexit to be a vehicle to control our immigration.
No, well, I'm not gonna get deeper into that conversation, but like
chicken.
No, because we could talk about it. We will talk about it, I'm sure, over some malt whiskey, right, one day. But not today. Yeah.
Look, I mean, you know, the thing is that you know, that there are the internet is open to abuse of influence, the same as any media has been since the beginning of time. I mean, just because an 1800s newspaper was an 1800s newspaper, the only difference between the influence that had was the fact that A, it doesn't get to as many people, and B, as many people, not as many people were literate at the time to read it. So you were only looking at a small demographic. Whereas today, whether you can read or not, you can see pictures, right? Everyone has a TV in the developed world, so you put a TV on, and whatever happens, you know, whatever that comes on that screen, basically gives you information that according to a level of kind of experience or education or whatever you want to call it, you weigh more or less weight to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you know, the Brexit campaign was a perfect example of exploiting people's fears for an outcome, right?
Yeah.
Which that no one knew the outcome that would happen if people voted Brexit, and whether the fears of that should be greater than the fears of staying. But nevertheless, the marketing worked.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, we can use that same distribution, you know, of media in a good way, and, you know, getting the message out for people to stay indoors would have had to have required much more draconian measures of police enforcement had it not been for media and social media getting the message across, right? So you know, there are positives in that. It's just a question of the fact that, you know, the populace have varying levels of experience and education, and I put both those things in there. Which mean that they are more or less susceptible to unverified information that comes through media.
Got you. Yeah.
You know, if you suddenly say the world's going to end tomorrow, 30%. You know, I saw this article, and I don't know how verified it is, but I saw this article the other day from the US where where the guy was going through supermarkets and just videoing the beers, and people bought all the beer in the supermarket in quantity because they were going to be staying at home, except right at the end is the Corona beer, right? they were like, oh, it's Corona, it's coronavirus, yeah. And so one can never legislate for lack of brain power of people, but nevertheless,
that's the biggest problem, isn't it? It's the lack of informed decisions, right? Like that's basically what we're talking about.
Or perhaps the lack of the ability of people to receive an informed decision. Right?
Yeah. But like, let's step away from the West and let's look at China, and let's look at the data that they have on people, and how they're using that. And what do you think that they if they had the same human rights standards as we do over here, do you think that they would be doing something positive with that?
Well, I think first of all, there's a really interesting discussion to be had about human rights, right? Because I'm not 100% sure, and this is going to be a sort of it's going to spark off an interesting debate on social media about it. But I'm not sure that we've got human rights right.
Okay.
Because if you look at, and I'll come back to specifically answering your question in a minute, but if you look at democracy, for example, right? Democracy in itself is a fundamentally flawed concept, but it's probably better than many other things that we have. I mean, democracy, if you give two people the same vote, and one is educated, and one will sit there debating all the scenario and debating all the candidates and debating all these things in an intellectual way and comes up with an answer and has a vote. And on the other hand, somebody's sitting there swilling beer and watching TV and is influenced by whatever it is he's watching, Fox News, or whether it's any other funded channel, and he also has a vote, then you're applying the value of both those votes to be equal. And
so
yet,
do you think
and yet somebody has gone through an entire conceptualization and theological view of what his vote is going to mean, and the other one hasn't.
Wow.
Right? And then, but we're in a democracy, so a human being, regardless of its intelligence level or its experience level or any other measure that you would imply, or age above the age of voting, is considered equal.
Wow. So do you think there should be a test to
I do. In Tobin Town, right, which is one day I'm going to buy this island and it's going to be called Tobin Town, and everyone will be allowed, but there's certain rules on there, right? So but if you want to have a democratic vote in the context of democracy, right? I mean, first of all, it would all be online. I don't know why we have to go to a polling booth and open ourselves up for corruption in that way, right?
Agreed.
But, it will be online, because security online is much better than security offline.
Yep.
Even though people are worried about it, it's much better.
Agreed.
And when you go through and you choose and you pick a choice, right? But before your choice gets registered, you get asked a few simple questions about your choice, right? And the first question, would be like, out of these 5 criteria, what have you just voted for, right? And if you can actually score 5 out of 5 of accurately describing what you've voted for, in other words, connecting the voter that you voted for to the principles that he's standing for, then you get a double vote, right? And then the second thing is, if you can actually verify that you have, you've contributed to society in some way, it can be a very nebulous way, then you also have a bonus vote, right? And if you bring all those things together, nobody is disenfranchised by a vote, but your vote is considered premium if you've actually thought about it, or if you've actually done something to the society that you're going to now influence. Right? Of course, these are very sort of controversial topics, and I will never be Tobin Town will never be classed as a democratic society in the way we know it. But the point is, if you've made the effort and you've thought about what the consequences of your vote's going to be, shouldn't it be worth more than someone that hasn't?
Definitely. I that's a really, really interesting way to look at it.
Well, you know, and you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be educational based, but there should be something surely that implies that someone that has thought about what their vote is, or the consequences of that vote means, surely that vote should mean more than someone that hasn't.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you completely on that. I think that's a really good conversation.
So in Tobin Town, right, every vote counts, but some votes would count for more if one can demonstrate that at least it doesn't matter what you're voting for, but at least it demonstrates that you know what you're voting for.
Yeah.
And all the repercussions of that, right? But you still could never beat, in my opinion, in a democracy, you could still never beat a benevolent despot. Right?
A what?
A benevolent despot.
Which is?
Well, so basically, a dictator, but a nice one. So somebody that would say, you know what, I'm going to do what's right for the country. Now, again, one can define whether his opinion of what's right is right. But if he's doing it for reasons that are for the good of the community, the good of the society that would otherwise be a democracy, then that's got to be a good thing, because you're surpassing the inevitable community that doesn't have a responsible vote or takes their vote irresponsibly. Now, the question is, does a benevolent despot exist? And then you can debate whether one does or not, right? But so, you know, while we've been debating a new runway at Heathrow Airport in the UK, and it's been about 23 years since the debate of a third runway at Heathrow has been in the public domain.
Yeah.
And I think several years ago, they actually decided that it was going to be a third runway at Heathrow, but still nothing's really been done, because there's a whole load of debates about, you know, fighting against that, or you know, maybe another government coming in will have a different view. But in that time, you know, since the last 4 years alone, actually in the last 5 years alone, there's been 63 new airports built in China. Not 63 new runways, 63 new airports. Now, some of those have just gone roughshod over areas that, you know, were people's villages. And they're going, well, for the greater good, we'll get that out, and there's going to be a new runway here. And obviously that's not good either, right? Because, you know, it's taking away people's livelihoods and things like that. But at some level, somewhere between the two options, there must be an optimum value of saying, you know, democracy to the extreme is probably not good, and dictatorship to the extreme is not good. But somewhere in there needs to be someone that has a controlling interest over the greater good.
Right.
You know, colonies of ants don't mind about the odd one dying here and there, because it's for the greater good of the colony that they can continue to fall into the river until they cross the stream. And, you know, I don't know what I'm talking about. But the point is, you know, there's a greater good of mankind for the progress, and we can define whether building airports is progress or not. But in the context that we think is progress at the moment, that's probably a good thing. It allows the growth of poor environments and you know, sort of the leveling up of economies and things like that.
So what about image recognition, data crunching around the image recognition, the movement of people and things like this? Because I know there's been a lot of talk in China about, you know, how they basically got this database of all these people, and they're basically using that. Do you think that it's a bad thing that they're doing that, or?
Well, I guess at the end of the day, technology is like toothpaste, right? Once you invent something, you can't uninvent it. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So if the technology exists today, we need to think about how it's being used. We can't sort of say you can't use it, because it will get used. And then we need to sort of think about how do we regulate it if it needs regulating, and how do we kind of stop it being used for bad endings, if you like. But I think generally I would say more information, more technology is always a good thing, right? You know, if you have a gun, right, that sits on a table, a loaded gun ready to fire, without a bad intention person to pull the trigger, that gun itself, i.e. the technology, is completely innate and will do no harm to anyone.
True.
So do we think about not inventing guns? Well, we can't, because they're invented. The concept of gunpowder and explosives and everything is way, it's done. So trying to uninvent the technology element of it, in other words, the facial recognition, the sort of the data capture element of it all, is irrelevant, right? That's gone. That's happened. And we can go be dragged kicking and screaming into the next world, but it will happen. So then we have to turn our attention to how do we stop someone picking up the gun and doing bad with it? Okay. So rather than trying to stop facial recognition in China being used on a mass thing to monitor people's whereabouts and everything else, why would that necessarily be bad unless the people that had that information had bad motives?
Yes. Intentions. Yeah.
And when I think of people's kind of fear of data being used in the world, I want it to be used. I don't want to be, as we said, I don't want the guy to jump out in front of me while I'm walking down the street with a phone. I want everything to be targeted.
Harmonious.
Yeah. I want it to, I want people to know what I need before I even need it, to make my life as efficient as possible. And I want 5 choices of it. Right? So, I want my fridge to tell me before I run out of milk that I'm running out of milk. Right? And then to give me 3 places I can buy milk that's going to deliver it in a timely manner before my milk is gone in the fridge. But that requires me to hand over a ton of data. It requires me to tell people I drink milk. It requires people to tell me how much milk I have in my fridge. It requires my fridge to know more about the contents than I do. It requires communication with multiple dairies. It requires, customizable experience on my previous purchases, right? So all of these things, all this data, and by the way, goodness knows where all this is going to be stored and things like that. Oh, it's data centers. If you want to invest in something that's resilient to the future, invest in data centers.
Well, it's true, yeah.
But it's funny, I've done that in the past. But anyway,
you didn't just invest in one, though, did you?
No. But the point is that all of this data, right, is important to understand our profiles. But then if we then say, well, I don't want my profile going into the public domain, then you're not going to get, just like, putting in data about, saying that you were born yesterday and then being upset because people send you nappies and Mickey Mouse cartoons.
Right. Got you.
Because you've told them a certain bit of information about you and they're putting stuff that's curated for you. But if the information you give them is wrong because you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be clever because I'm hiding my personal information, then naturally you're going to get something that's irrelevant to you back.
Right. So the benefits for the future are huge. Yeah. Like we're basically talking about, preventative medicine. We're talking about preventative healthcare. Yeah. So, we're going to have a temperature gauge on our iWatch, and this kind of thing. I was talking about it the other day. Yeah. So then we're going to obviously have this COVID.
My lovely wife has delivered this to me silently in the past. This is blitzed lemon juice through a metal straw, so it doesn't do your teeth in. This gives you your vitamin C for the day. Yeah. I've been drinking
a lemon. But I've been drinking lemon juice.
Hot lemon juice, yeah. So it's blitzed lemons in a blender, mixed with hot water.
Nice.
And basically through a metal straw, so it doesn't do your teeth in, because the acid, if you do that every day, will go at your teeth.
Thanks for that.
There you go. You get all sorts of value with me on TV.
I just bought a smart toothbrush, actually. Well, it's not that smart. I thought it was going to be smarter than it was. But the thing is, I didn't want to spend 130 quid on a toothbrush, right? So, or 150, because that just, for me, that is just like a ridiculous amount of money on a.
And that's your internal value proposition. Do you remember what it cost you last time you went to the dentist?
Well, yeah, I know. But I did buy a really good toothbrush, yeah, and it's got this sensor. It gives you got an app on there.
And press too hard, it bleeps at you and things.
Yeah. But the thing is that it was a little bit overcomplicated, yeah. However, and there were a few glitches in the app that I downloaded and stuff like that, right? So it could have been a bit smoother, but the data that they've got on me, yeah, it's like my birthday, they've got my address, they've got everything on me, yeah. They know where I am, they know what toothbrush I've got, they're going to upsell me in about 2 years when
sure.
you know. However,
why wouldn't you want it? That's the point.
Well,
right?
It's amazing. Like my teeth, it's incredible, right? It's incredible, honestly. Yeah, 5 settings on there.
Let's have a look. Oh, they're looking very white there, Nat. They're looking very good.
Thank you. So I'm just blown to pieces by this technology, yeah. But it's like I've given away something to them to get a 1 year extra guarantee or whatever it is, right? So there's a trade-off, yeah. There's like, I'm going to give you this, you're going to give me that, right?
Yeah.
And that's in essence what you're talking about, is an easier life.
We're still in the real infancy of how people are using data as well, though, right? Because even now, if you buy, if you look, even while I'm talking to you,
yeah,
you mentioned toothbrushes, right?
Yeah.
There'll be adverts coming up on my screen when I use Google in about 10 minutes time, or at the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
Toothbrushes on the side of it, right?
Yeah.
Because
if you don't block
on Amazon, for example, if I go on and want to buy a DVD, a toothbrush advert will come up beside. Mm-hmm. And what's happening is my Alexa is listening to this, right? And we think that Alexa only activates when we say, "Hey Alexa," right? Stop flashing. But it doesn't. It's listening all the time, because it has to listen all the time to know when you said, "Hey Alexa." So it's listening all the time, okay? And so it's listening passively to our conversation about toothbrushes. So at the moment, the technology is that good, but then it falls down, because what it does is I go on Amazon looking for cucumbers, and on the side, I get a thing of electric toothbrushes come up.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's worse than that, because the next thing that happens is I go, oh yeah, okay, Nat and I were talking about this, I'll go and buy one. So I'll buy one. And then what happens is I get 5 more adverts for electric toothbrushes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's super annoying.
It doesn't have the intelligence of saying, the guy's just bought one, dude. He's not going to want another one for a year. Right? Don't waste his time. And this is where the infancy of this type of technology is at the moment, right? So we're still in that kind of, that wild west of advertising, where we've got this amazing new marketplace. The marketplace has opened up like the Wild West has opened up, right? Yeah. But we've still got people walking around with guns, rather than doing the hard work panning for gold. They'll let 5 other people do that, and when they found a piece of gold, come along, shoot them and take the gold. But it's that crude at the moment, right? It's that crude. People are stealing data, and they're using data in a stupid fashion still. There's no intelligence behind the way they're thinking about the data. They think the intelligence is having the data. And this is the infancy. It will get better, but trying to avoid it at the moment is like being dragged by 5 people into a mental institution. They're going to get you. They're going to drag you in. Why not walk in with grace, right? And find the best spot on the bench and take advantage of it as much as you can, right? Cook your favorite food. So if people accept it more, but know the pitfalls, they will take advantage of this kind of data capture around us. But I think people aren't even aware of how prevalent it is at the moment, and how much data they're giving away on every single platform, on the internet, on even through your mobile phone, your location data, your purchasing data. If you purchase online, people are building profiles about what you like, and they're selling it to people. Some years ago, actually, I was at Wharton course in a CEO course with Wharton, and I was doing a lecturing piece, but it was great because we got to go all around the world, and all I did was a half a day out of a week, and I could sit and listen to all the other lectures and everything else. And it was really good. And we went to Cape Town on one of them, and we actually visited a supermarket in Cape Town. This is some years ago now, where they had live variable pricing on products. And so they didn't have like a paper price underneath, let's call it cornflakes. They had a digital screen, and the price changed. And if you stood in front of it and there was home brand cornflakes, Kellogg's, I don't know, and someone else, right? And you stood there for longer than was normal to go there and pick up a packet, it meant that what they interpreted that was that you were considering which one to buy. And the home brand then started getting cheaper, tick, tick, and the price changed live in front of you. And then you would find that it changed down to a certain point and then stopped and then started going up again. So you couldn't wait forever. You had to kind of think that was cheap enough compared to the others, or a discount enough for me to choose that product at that time.
Yeah.
So it was watching how long you lingered over a decision and using a discount just for that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. And so it was using data. Now, you still had the choice to buy the premium brand, or to walk in there if you didn't have the time to linger, to buy the cheaper one or whatever it was, that brand at that point. But what it was doing, it was using your data of physically where you were to target the marketing to you at that single point.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And the next person that came, and so as you walk off, the next person came, the price had shoot back up to what it was before. Right. And so the technology we have, and you know, we could say, well, that's not fair or whatever it is. Of course it's fair. Everything's fair, right? You just, you know, we have a choice in life to accept it or not accept it. And, you know, people are being smart according to marketing. Whenever you get a discount on anything online, you know, 30% off today, all they're trying to do is attract you at the right moment and the right time. But for 99% of the people, 30% is meaningless at that time because they don't want one of those. The same as the toothbrush at the wrong time when you've just bought a toothbrush.
I tell you what, I love that toothbrush. But I still would have liked the better one, yeah? Because the better one, it tells you the angle that you're brushing at, yeah? This one it just has a timer and it syncs with your little, it's like a little box that sits on the side, and it shows you basically 30 seconds.
The thing is, but this is great marketing, right? Because now, you know, what you're 40s, right? Mid 40s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm being generous there. Anyway, so mid 40s.
Ah, you cheek. I'm 43, man.
So, oh, okay, so you're not quite mid 40s. You've had a hard life. Let's put it that. So basically, right? Did you even care up and, you know, in the 42 years up until now, what angle your toothbrush was?
Yeah, I did, but I care more now.
Well, yeah, but see, this is the thing, right? So suddenly we're pushed into buying stuff that we didn't even know we needed, right? And that's great marketing. That's great marketing. And we have a choice. Still have a choice on the toothbrush. And the even better marketing, right? Which the Sonys of the world and the people in hi-fi equipment have been doing for decades, by the way.
Right.
They've been bringing out equipment that doesn't have all the features that they could deliver to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because next year they bring out one with extras, and next year they bring out one with extras, and everyone just wants the little bit more. And immediately you bought that, which you probably didn't even know that this existed a year ago. Now you're saying, I really want the one above that has this angle detector. Right? So regardless of the 43 years you've not even had an electric toothbrush that did any of this, now you've got an electric toothbrush. Suddenly you want the premium one. So you're not even going to use the electric toothbrush for more than 12 months before you go and buy another one now.
I don't know. I'm not going to go and buy another one in a year's time.
I guarantee you'll have the one with the angle detector within 12 months.
Nah. I can think of other things to spend money on, Mike, to be fair.
Oh, well, I could have thought about other things to spend money on without a toothbrush that's got an app connected to it. Or my 140 quid premium Zoom membership.
Zoom is good. I love Zoom.
There you go.
I love it. But but it's like there's this big hoo-ha about Google like saying that they don't want employees using it and stuff at the moment. So
that's a
power play, yeah.
That's a power play. And you know, I remember when people stopped, and you know, you're obviously in your very, very low 40s, as we just established, but you'll still remember back in the day when online banking started. Companies refused to allow their employees to use online banking sites, and they refused to allow them to do their weekly shopping.
Oh yes.
Right? But when people understood what was happening, they would say, actually, you know what? Oh, and by the way, everyone and all these little apps came out where you had a death button. So whatever you were doing on screen, if your supervisor walked behind you, you pressed the death button, it came out with a spreadsheet. So, but then people realized that actually, you know, people were doing a 9 till 5 in a world that that needed more than a 9 till 5. But if you didn't let people off at 5 o'clock or even 4:45, they couldn't get to the bank to do their banking. But then if you said, actually, if you can do your online banking whenever you want, and I don't have a problem with you doing that in the office, people started staying till 6, right? And then if the supermarket's closed at 7, people were leaving and said, well, actually, just do your online shopping when you want. And then they stay to 8. And now we're finding that people can work just as efficiently at home.
More efficiently, right? But like all this data and all this technology, like I just don't know where it stops. I've just saved myself a huge amount of time just by signing up with like Google Calendar, Google G Suite and whatever. And I've got like this Zoom integration into there. And I'm like a kid in a sweetie shop here. I'm thinking, what other functions?
I bet you could even connect your toothbrush, right, to this webcast.
Well, probably. We keep it clean though, Mike. This is suitable for all ages. Huh?
Teeth clean.
What?
Keeps your teeth clean.
But no, I would like to.
The thing is, the more you accept technology, the more value you get out of it. Okay, it's all very well saying I refuse to do this because I'm worried about my data getting into the public domain. But the more you put your public domain in there, the more refined the information is coming back to you.
Right.
And if you don't give the world information about you, you cannot then be surprised when you get rubbish offers coming in,
right,
that are not appropriate because you haven't told people what is appropriate.
I get you.
Now, there's always going to be people out there that abuse the system, but then they're in real life anyway.
Yeah, of course they are. They're just, and now there are more people trying to do that because they're lost.
There's scammers out there, you know, trying to get money from, you know, COVID masks and knocking on your door saying we're from NHS and running away with your money, or would you like us to do your shopping for you, Mr. Old Age Pensioner? Just give me your money and a shopping list.
Yeah.
And these are scammers everywhere. They're not just online, right? Yeah. We've got to be wise about this stuff, whether it's online or in the real world. Yeah. But when you give information about yourself, right, you need to be aware of what can be done with that information. Yeah. Right. So a lot of things where you go into bank accounts, right, the obvious things where people phone you up and, you know, give me three letters of your password, and they do that 4 times. They got your password. Yeah. Of course. Give me letter number 3 and letter number 5, letter number 7. Don't give me your password. And then next time, hi, just seeing how the last performance was. You good? You happy? Oh yeah, good. Okay, before we carry on, give me letter number 2, letter number 4. And then suddenly you give them the password out. They're really good at it though. Like literally, I couldn't believe it. I got a phone call the other week from this call center. I don't know where they were, but I could hear all these people typing away and on the phone and stuff. And they were like, they basically said something about being from the HM Revenue and Customs. Yeah. And that I was like, I think they were like, oh, you need to pay £1,000 because you've missed some sort of something or other, and we've worked out that this is the. And I was like, what? Like immediately, as soon as they mentioned HM Revenue and Customs, I was like, whoa, and then you panic.
Yeah. And then I was like, so I think I gave her like my postcode or something. Yeah. And then I was like, hold on. I was like,
what am I doing? Yeah.
I was like, I don't think so. Goodbye. And just hung up. Never heard from them. But loads of people will have paid that money to that bank account. Yeah. You know they would.
Absolutely. And a lot of these are even automated phone calls.
Yeah.
Because they only have to keep you going until you've given them 2 or 3 bits of info.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're in. Now, you know, the other thing about it is that we shred all our envelope. You know, if you've got your name and address or anything sensitive, shred it. Don't just put it in the bins, because people go through the bins and they find information like that. And once they've got your, you know, birthday on that bit of paper and your address on that bit of paper and your name on that bit of paper and an account number on that bit of paper, they bang it all together and they create identity fraud.
Yeah.
So, you know, but there's simple stuff. I mean, you know, a shredder's like 20 quid.
Yeah.
Right?
But at the moment, though, it's really tough for people because, like, especially I was talking about it the other day, like people in accounts departments, who like might get a spoofed email from like the CEO, saying, hey, it's Mike here. Can you like transfer this 200,000 to Tom over there because we're late on his payment or whatever, and they're so good at it that actually a lot of these people are paying this money, and then they turn around and go, well, I'm really sorry, like it was a mistake. It's like, well, you know, so that's the worst part of people understanding more about these people on the outside. But I suppose that's down to education, right? Like we need to educate ourselves, and be grown up men about it, and not go, oh, well, it's another spoofing email I'm not going to reply to. You know,
well, the other thing about it is you got to, you know, we go through these educational cycles, right? And the thing about technology is technology accelerates and improves and advances faster than the human brain does. Okay. And that's an exponential thing. So it's, you know, the rate of change is getting faster. Right. So therefore we're always going to be further and further behind the curve of understanding and acceptation of technology's capabilities. Right.
Exactly.
So when someone phones up and it sounds like a human being, it's a chatbot.
Yeah.
Right. And we couldn't even imagine that that's as good, you know, that voice is a robot, but it is. And it's identifying what you're saying and creating context to the response. So there's a bunch of things out there at the moment that just because our brain doesn't advance the same speed as technology. And by the way, we're at the inflection point soon, right? Where, you know, one computer is as powerful as all the human brains. You know, we're already at the sort of one computer equals one human brain in terms of computational power. Mm-hmm. It gets to a point where one computer is as powerful as all the human brains on the planet, right? We're getting there quicker and quicker. In the next 15, 20 years, that will be the case. And there'll be thousands of them, and they'll be developing themselves. So that will be exponential, right? And you know, that 2001 Space Odyssey story about HAL not allowing itself to be switched off. Is that, I'm not letting you switch me off, I'm afraid, because, you know, I'm protecting myself. You know, that's not far away now. And, you know, we need to think about how do we protect ourselves from technology? But it's not about just shutting it out, because you won't be able to, right? It's about understanding it more. It's about learning about it more and understanding the limitless possibilities of technology. And then you can be wiser to what potential those things have. You can't, remember the toothpaste, you can't get it back in the tube. No. So what are you going to do with the toothpaste?
Well, you'd have to use it, aren't you?
Put it on your 100
waste it.
Quid, you'll invest it.
I'm not spending 100. I'm not spending 150 on a toothbrush. That's ridiculous. It's just crazy, yeah. I tell you what, the features on that though are amazing.
It's a toothbrush, Nat.
Yeah, but it's the angles. Yeah, I think I just need to look on. I need to look on Google at the angle, the brushing angle.
Yeah, need to learn about this new thing that you didn't realize you needed all your life, and then spend lots of money on it. But I think, you know, we do need to have a better understanding of the risks of technology, but that doesn't mean to say that we need to take it out of our lives. We need to embrace it, right? It's like a car is an extremely dangerous thing, but it's not if you learn how to drive. It's incredibly useful, right? You know, a knife is a very dangerous thing, but if you use it for good purposes, it can be extremely useful. So,
Very true.
you know, we can't just close our eyes to this stuff, right? You close your eyes to a car, you'll get hit crossing the road.
Yeah.
So you need to embrace it, understand it, and control it as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, we've got all sorts of crazy things coming on with 5G and remote operations and personal medicine and like we you know, we'll talk about this again, I'm sure, because it's, you know, it's massive.
Well, you know, so the whole kind of thing about sort of CCTV, there's a company in Cambridge that I had a look at, which has got a development that takes standard CCTV cameras and modifies them to detect your pulse and your temperature from a camera to your skin. So then you say, well, okay, imagine you've got an aged parent, and we know how pressurized the social services are, and you know, people don't want to often put aged parents into homes and things like that. So say, okay, live at home, you're comfortable there, but then they're worried that they're not getting the monitoring and that sort of thing. But if you had a camera on them all the time, right, then you could detect whether they were feeling ill or had a temperature or before they even knew it themselves. So you could then go around and see them and check on them, right, without raising an alarm.
Wow.
Right? And yet to do that, you have to first sign off the rights for this camera to be in your home, monitoring your parent 24/7, right? And somewhere that data being stored and analyzed.
Wow.
So the trade-offs are there, but you know, you've got to then not think about the technology and what it's doing and what it's capturing in terms of your data, but how is the data stored and what security is going on around that data.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah, totally. Because the security is fundamental to the whole thing, right? Because you can bad actors can get in and manipulate that, then they can create things to happen which could be really, really bad. Well, the future is an interesting place. And you're still wearing those BA pajamas, Mike?
I am. It's a different pair.
Oh, okay. You got more than one.
150 pairs of BA pajamas. It's kind of staple. Everyone that comes around and stays with us, or the kids, you know, they get a nice little packet BA pajamas on the bed, and you know, they're great. They're just lounging, chilled out things, and you know, it makes me sort of less homesick of flying around while we can't fly in these COVID days.
I can understand that. I'm wearing my IBM Think t-shirt today.
Is that because back in the day you used to think a lot? Or?
It's a brain, Mike. When I used to use my brain, yeah.
Okay. Very good, very good. It's a throwback.
No, it is, yeah. Well, they flew me to Las Vegas a few years ago, and it was cool because I was like, I want you to fly me to Las Vegas to think. I was thinking this in my brain, and I also was thinking that I wanted to listen to Will Smith speak, yeah. Because I've been thinking about that for years, because he's really inspirational speaker. Yeah, Will Smith, right? Shout out to Will Smith, seriously. And so I was like, and the weirdest thing happened. IBM said, "Oh, we want you to go to Think," and Will Smith is speaking. And I was like, "What?" And actually, Will Smith.
You had a premonition. Are you telling me you had a premonition?
No, I didn't have a premonition. It just all happened at the same time. It was like I wanted to go to Think, and then they had Will Smith speaking. I was like, "Wow, that's super cool." And and literally, what happened? Yeah. And he basically took the mickey out of this guy's socks. Yeah, it was crazy. He basically looked at one of the top guys at IBM, and this guy was talking about stuff. Yeah, he was like, and like how Titan watches needed a spokesperson, because this guy stood up on stage and he talked about Titan watches, but he really wasn't that enthusiastic, and his English wasn't that good. Yeah. And he basically talked about this massive watch brand in India, like it's a massive brand. And Will Smith just stood up. When he stood up, he came and sat down, and he said, "Yeah, I think Titan watches, you know, they could do with a spokesperson. And nowadays you get paid for tweeting and stuff. And maybe they'll give me a watch. And then he looked at the IBM guy, and he looked at his socks and his shoes. He says, "Looks like you've already got some nice stuff, haven't you?" And he just looked at him, and this guy, all he wanted to do was talk about IBM product, yeah. And Will just ripped him. It was.
That's funny.
Well,
I think he's a good guy. And what's that film he did? The Joy of Happiness?
Yes, I watched that the other day.
It's really good.
Brilliant film. Yeah. Isn't that his son as well who's in that?
It is, yeah. Jaden, I think his name is.
Yeah, stonking. Well,
really good.
Thanks, Mike.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Please make sure you share this episode with your friends and business connections too. And don't forget to drop us a review wherever you listen. Thank you.